It's no Ghostbusters or Goonies then.
It's nowhere near Ghostbusters or Goonies, but I remember it being funny, right? And it's not as funny as it was when I was a kid.
Oh, nothing ever is. We recently watched some episodes of the classic 60s Scooby-Doo, and they have about 4 animations in the whole thing. The rest of it just repeated and mirrored with a slightly different background. So apparently this isn't the Pretty Good Gaming podcast, it's the old movies and TV podcast.
Well, we should do maybe a movies and TV podcast sometime in the future. I don't know. I'm sure we'll have plenty to say. Watched the first episode of The Boys yesterday. That was pretty
I've been meaning to watch that for ages, but I feel like I need to kind of be in the right mood because it looks very, very violent.
I saw the first episode and I'm hooked. I'm already hooked. Anyway, hello and welcome to the Pretty Good Gaming Podcast. Hello, Akroisai podcast 3 dialogue with, right? 28?
Don't fucking ask me. I don't know.
Podcast number 28, I think it is. It certainly is. My name is Gareth Evans. This is Mr. Henry Cooper. We were going on a little bit of a tangent. Mr. Henry Superhero Lover Cooper.
I wouldn't go that far, but
you love superheroes. We were talking about superheroes as in the Boys TV show, which doesn't. It's funny because the title doesn't relate anything at all towards.
Yeah, it's about
superheroes. You don't
stopping them, right? It's about other people.
No spoilers here, but
no, I enjoy superheroes. They are good fun.
Yeah, but anyway, that was our little tangent on before we started our preamble
for
the podcast about TV and how films just aren't as good.
We're still rambling.
We are still rambling. But it's the intro, right? It's the intro. We always ramble on the intro. We are going to be talking about gaming related stuff in this podcast. We promise. And what we've got in store for you are the following. We're talking about loot box odds will now have to be disclosed in future, for at least for Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo. New policy being introduced. Rocket League is ditching randomized loot, another loot box related thing, which is probably good news for a lot of people. There's an update regarding the Ooblets game, which went exclusive with Epic Games Store, and there was a huge furore around that. A bit of an update around that. We'll be taking Patreon questions, and we'll also be reading out YouTube comments, including the triggered fanboy comment of the week. And oh my god, did we have a lot to choose from. We covered Hideo Kojima, and everyone
put words in our mouths that we didn't
mischaracterizing.
But I think there was a lot of people who watched that who aren't necessarily regular viewers of us.
Oh, of course. So they didn't quite get it. And also we talked about gun policy in the US. So we had plenty of triggered people, if you excuse the pun. We had plenty of people upset with us this week, enough to get some decent comments to read from the YouTubes. Now, first up, Sony, Microsoft and Nintendo are bringing policy to force loot box odds disclosure is the headline of this segment, Henry. And you're the one who wrote about it, so you're the one who's going to have to talk about it. So
there's a lot of talking to be done. So
what is happening?
Where I got all this from is from a GamesIndustry.biz article, which then splinters off into like half a dozen other ones. So if you can find that one, you can then find everything because it links to everything else. Well, essentially, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, held a committee, which we've heard about for a little while. I think it was first announced that it was going to happen back in November by FTC Chairman Joseph Simons, I don't quite know which one that is, who promised Congress they'd look into the whole loot box situation and in-game monetization, whether or not it's gambling, this, that, and the other, protecting kids, all that. Yeah. Good news. Mm-hmm. So that happened, I believe, yesterday. Wednesday afternoon and evening. And it was called Inside the Game, Unlocking the Consumer Issues Surrounding Loot Boxes. And they've come to some, not necessarily conclusions, but there's been some interesting points made at the event. And as everyone probably already knows by now, loot boxes are already fully considered gambling in Holland and Belgium, but everywhere else it's a bit tentative, and it comes down to whether or not you can exchange the items for real world value, or whether or not it actually plays like gambling in your brain, because some argue it does, some argue it doesn't.
Yeah. Not only is it considered gambling in those countries, is actually regulated as well, and games aren't allowed to implement gambling mechanics in Belgium anymore because of the regulation that they've brought in.
Exactly. So the ESA, who are the Entertainment Software Association, you might have heard of them because they are often saying bullshit because they're all pro publisher.
Well, literally the board is made up of all the big, You're talking the likes of EA executive, you're talking Activision executive, you're talking Ubisoft, all the biggest companies you can imagine, right? All the executives are on the board of the ESA. They're paid by the big corporations in the industry to represent their interests. They're literally bankrolled by the big corporations, so they're going to be totally against regulation or any form of villainizing loot boxes or anything like that. They want loot boxes because it makes the companies they represent so much money. They
will do anything to try and keep them. So it's kind of why they've not been totally outright banned. But the ESA have announced that the Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo are implementing policies to force the odds to be disclosed, essentially. This was announced by Michael Warnick, who's Chief Counsel of Tech Policy at the ESA, and he said, "I'm pleased to announce this morning that Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony have indicated to ESA a commitment to new policies with respect to the use of paid loot boxes in games that are developed for their platforms." So that's a good point to recognize their platform. So it's not just the games published by Sony or published by Microsoft, published by Nintendo. It'll be all games on the PlayStation, on the Xbox, on the Switch. And he goes on, specifically, this would apply to new games and game updates that add loot box features, and it would require the disclosure of the relative rarity or probabilities of obtaining randomized virtual items in games that are available on their platform. So again, it's on their platforms. That's a key thing. And the plan is that this will come into effect by the end of 2020. So it's still a little while.
Yeah.
But this is a policy. So if the game publishers don't adhere to it, their game can't be put on that platform because they're not meeting their T's and C's, essentially.
Well, this is something that's been done in China for over a decade, I believe.
Yeah.
Chinese games have to disclose the odds of winning any certain specific item out of a randomized loot crate. So this is just us catching up with China, believe it or not. So the question that it raises for me is that the ESA is saying, Michael Wernicke is like, I'm pleased to announce that this is the change that we're going to do. It's going to make loot boxes all right. Everyone's going to be happy with loot boxes. That's kind of guys that this is what I think they're trying to do. They're trying to appease the masses by making a change, but in reality, it does fuck all. Really, the loot boxes are still there. You just know a little bit more about them. I mean, if you're going to have loot boxes, obviously it'd be nice to know what the chances are of winning them, but it still doesn't address the problems with kids who are subject to these gambling mechanics and the damage that it might do on them. It doesn't go that way. It doesn't go far enough at all in my eyes in order to regulate. It doesn't get any steps at all in order to regulate them. All it does is it just adds an extra level of it's all right because we're thinking about it now. At least it does fuck all.
Yeah, it's a justification so that they can keep doing it and keep the loot boxes there in the first place. But as soon as you start throwing around words like odds, there's definitely fucking gambling.
They're using gambling terms now. Yeah. It's like, this is the odds that you're going to get. It's like,
and a lot of the time it's less than 1%. Less than 1% of a chance to get like the top tier players in FIFA. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so the ESA love loot boxes. They're crazy about it because obviously they're pro publisher because they're the people who make them up. And back in November when this committee was first being talked about, they said loot boxes are one way that players can enhance the experience that video games offer. So loot boxes enhance the games and actively make them better.
Enhance the experience.
Contrary to assertions, loot boxes are not gambling. Now, that's
anything with odds is gambling in my book, right?
Right. They have no real-world value. Players always receive something that enhances their experience, and they are entirely optional to purchase. They can enhance the experience for those who choose to use them, but have no impact on those who do not. So it makes the game better, and it's totally a choice, but we're going to give you the choice to not make your game better. Yeah. So even that argument is bogus.
No impact on those who do not. Not really. Not if you tailor your game or you create your game around loot boxes. No impact. That's a huge impact on you if maybe you design your game around loot boxes, like maybe Battlefront 2 was a prime example of that. Obviously, they stripped them out before actually that launched. But it's just these mouthpieces saying things that justify their own position, whereas in reality, it's just a load of bullshit.
Yeah, and it doesn't impact those who do not. Of course, it bloody does. If you've got pay to win type ones. So the first example that pops into my head is a game like Injustice 2, which I'm a big fan of that game, but its loot box system is just a loot box system. There's no two ways about it. And you open them, and then you'll get cosmetic items, all of which have stats. All of them have stats.
Yeah.
And then if you're playing online, you can opt to switch the stats off, so it's just your base version of the character who looks the way you want.
Yeah.
Or you can leave them on and have all of these extra abilities, which will give you an edge.
A question for me is, like, loot boxes are one way that players can enhance the experience that video games offer. Okay, taking that premise, loot boxes enhance what the experience that your games offer, right? They enhance your experience. If that is true, if what the ESA say are true here, why monetize them? Why not just have them in the game as a separate mechanic that you don't have to pay for? If that is indeed their only main goal is to enhance your experience, you don't need to monetize it. Obviously, that is bullshit. It's a smokescreen. Their main goal is to make money out of them.
Well, one good thing is that it's not just Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft who have committed to adhering to this policy. There's loads of them have jumped in, including the big ones. So you've got Activision Blizzard, Electronic Arts, so EA, Ubisoft, Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment, Bandai Namco Entertainment, Bethesda, Bungie, Take-Two Interactive, and Wizards of the Coast. I don't know who that last one is, but you've got the big ones in there. Activision, EA.
Just all the top ones, and then just one random Wizards of the Coast. I have no idea who like they're supposed to be thrown in, like, hey, we're doing it too, guys. It's like, who the fuck are you?
It's the nerdiest sounding name out of all of the others are sort of, all right, like, it's fine, but then Wizards of the Coast, and I'm literally imagining a bunch of guys dressed up as Gandalf and Merlin and Dumbledore prancing around on the beach.
Well, I mean, I'm like interested now. They acquisition Pokemon TCG, I don't know. Products Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, Pokemon trading card game. So I guess they're not nobody.
Yeah, they're not nobody. We just don't know. But yeah, you've got the big ones there. Activision, EA, Ubisoft, Warner Brothers are really bad for that sort of thing as well.
But these guys have to be on board anyway, because if the platforms insist on it,
yeah, exactly,
they've got no choice.
It's a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
Like, you either don't put your game on that system,
to it, or you don't. Or you haven't got any games on. You don't sell games anymore. Your choice.
Now, it sounds like this Michael Warnocky guy, he's doing a bit of God's work, talking about this policy, encouraging it and everything, but he's not. He's still a fucking dickhead because he
works for the ESA.
Exactly. But, well, dickhead's a bit harsh. I don't know him personally. I'm sure he's probably a swell guy to have at a barbecue. But he's got some dumb ideas about in-game currency. He basically tries to argue, I did have quotes, but they're a bit long, so you can go look them up for yourself. Tries to make this as concise as possible. He basically tries to say that they're convenient. Having an in-game currency, so you don't have to like go into your account and then add funds to it, or you can just add all of it at like a lump sum. So I'll pay $5 and get 1,000 crystals, and then I can buy stuff from that pool.
And we all know that all it is a way of
it's to disconnect the real world, like financial.
So you don't feel like
stuff.
You're paying real money for stuff. You're paying real money for a currency, which then you buy stuff with. It's disconnecting that, like, this digital stuff is worth real life money.
Yeah,
it's that they're trying to make a sort of barrier so that you don't feel like.
And it's always in weird lumps. It's always like pay £5 for 1,000 crystals, but everything will cost 900 crystals or 800 crystals. So you've always got that little bit extra, and then
1,200 crystals.
Oh look, there's this one thing that's on offer that's usually 200. Now it's 100. I'll spend this extra money, which I wouldn't have if I had before.
Convenience. It wouldn't need to be convenient if you didn't sell stuff. If you made it free. If it enhances your games that much. Yeah. Then it's convenient not to have money, right? The more convenient thing is not to have them buyable. So don't give me that bullshit, Mr. Michael Wernicke.
And if you want to keep your in-game microtransactions, which no one really wants anyway, but if you're going to throw that argument, just use a wallet, like a wallet system where you put forward real funds at any one time. It's like, all right, I'm going to send in £30, and over the next few months I will draw from that pool, because it's exactly the same thing. Just it's still called dollars or pounds or whatever. It's daft. But the funniest reason he put forward about why in-game currency is a good idea is for historical accuracy, and because it makes sense to the narrative.
Right.
And he uses the example of a game featuring ancient Egypt, and that's more likely referring to Assassin's Creed Origins or something like that. It doesn't make sense to have to buy a combat chariot with dollars. Yeah. So instead you'll use a realistic historical currency. I'm like, historical accuracy? What the fuck are you on about? Do you remember Beangate with Rockstar and Red Dead 2, where a can of baked beans was worth more than a gold bar? It's ridiculous.
Accurate. And how historically accurate is it to have credit cards in ancient Egypt?
I mean, historical
and to
accuracy.
pay for chariots.
Yeah,
so, how many pharaohs got their wallets out and like pay for chariots with their credit cards? Well, that didn't fucking happen. So don't talk to me about historical accuracy.
Well, hey, all that gold in the pyramids didn't come from nowhere. They got to get it from somewhere. The guy's full of shit. But at least this policy does sound like a good thing. It's a bit of progress, but it's not far enough at all.
No, I think it's. All it's doing is making the problem a little bit better rather than fixing the problem.
Yeah.
Like it's making it easier to deal with the issue rather than dealing with the issue.
It's getting rid of the headache you've got because you've got a cancerous brain tumor in your head. The cancerous brain tumor is still going to fuck your shit up, but at least you don't have a headache. It's not the same thing. Some people in Reddit were pretty keen on it and think it's a step forward. Like Dances Close to the Fire said, what's especially good about this is having the odds disclosed. It prevents them from doing some fuckery and changing the odds on the fly, which is a good point because they then can't fiddle it if they think too many people are getting this one character in FIFA or whatever.
That's providing you trust that those odds are accurate at any one point and that they are like maybe independently verified by somebody who checks that the algorithms are working as they should, because they could tell you it's 1%, but then again you might only get them 0.5%. There's no way of proving that unless somebody independently verifies that the algorithms are actually, like proper casinos have these
third party stuff.
Like online casinos have to have regulation. The people come in, they independently verify that the odds are actually what they say they're going to be. Like, are they going to do that here? And if they are, isn't that just another step closer to saying, well, we're doing exactly what the gambling industry does this, and we do it, but we're totally not gambling, guys.
Totally not. And if they do put forward the accurate odds, publishers could still, in theory, change them because there's nothing in this policy that seems to suggest they aren't allowed to. Yeah. But if they did change them, you just see it. You'd just see it, and then people would shit on them. Yeah. So it's not completely ruling it out, but they'd kind of have to deal with the fallout of it. Then another person, R'Law. Yeah. That's actually fucking huge that they did this. That's the entire market. I wonder if we'll see Valve join in on this too. And that's a really good point because this covers all the consoles, but not necessarily the PC market in terms of companies like Valve with Steam or Epic Games with Epic Games Store and GOG.
Yeah, we would have thought with all the publishers that are on board with it, Bethesda, Activision, EA, Ubisoft, Warner Brothers, all those, you would have thought that if they have it disclosing the odds for their loot boxes on console, it would make sense that when they publish them to the PC as well, that those odds will just go on to be there in the PC as well, and they wouldn't need, although there's no necessity for it to be there on PC because they've done it for the consoles. It would make sense that they stick them there as well. Yeah. Who knows? They might try and get away with some shit and not put them on there because they might make more money if they don't disclose the odds. I don't know.
There is a list on the Games Industry Biz website of ESA members, publishers who didn't make the commitment. And I don't know if that necessarily means they actively decided not to or just didn't get involved or haven't done it yet. But the list is still quite long. 505 Games, Capcom, CI Games, Deep Silver, Disney Interactive Studios, Epic Games, Focus Home Interactive, Gearbox Publishing, Gung Ho, Intellivision Entertainment, Calypso, Konami, Magic Leap, NC Soft, Natsumi, I believe that's how you pronounce it, Nexon, Rebellion, Riot Games, Sega, Square Enix, THQ Nordic, Tencent, and Marvelous. So there's still plenty of big ones who haven't jumped on board with this yet.
At least we don't know how they feel about that, I guess.
There was a really interesting article, I think it was on Game Rant, talking about how some streamers actually get different odds to what real players will.
This is a scandal.
It's mental.
This is bullshit is what this
is. So the CEO of Online Performers Group, which is a streamer management agency, he was asked if streamers are paid to do like unbox videos on stream. They're paid to promote it in that way. And the guy said, yes, they do that. It's a little odd, but it does happen quite frequently. And apparently one of the publishers said to that group, we could do better odds on the packs that this person opens for promotional purposes.
This is a scandal. This is a scandal.
Ridiculous.
This is one of the reasons why this disclosing of the odds needs to be there, because if you do have to have loot boxes, then at least people won't get the wool pulled over their eyes. Over their eyes. Because if you see a streamer, it reminds me that whole fucking T Martin thing, right? Where they were running a shady gambling site for CS:GO skins, right?
Yeah.
They were running it themselves, and they were like, "Oh, I just found this site. It's awesome!" And they kept spinning, they kept winning. It's like, "Oh, we're winning all this money. Why don't you come and try it, guys?" And it's like, "Wow!" People's reaction was, "Wow, it's really that easy to win. Let's go there." And they end up getting like in a lot of trouble for it. They got off with it eventually, but it's the same kind of thing.
They owned the site in that one, didn't they?
Yeah. If you see streamers winning more often, getting Ronaldo out of FIFA packs or whatever every 2 minutes, then it incentivizes people to throw money in, and it's an absolute scam is what that is. All it is misrepresentation in an effort to try and manipulate you to spend more money. It's a scam. So
paying streamers to do that is a form of advertising. So if you're showing off something different to what consumers will be getting, that's literally false advertising. It's fucking ridiculous. But then there's plenty of stuff from people saying that this isn't enough, like this. Just disclosing the odds isn't enough to help protect people. I totally agree as well. So consumer advocate groups are all kind of hot on this. So Consumer Reports Director of Financial Policy, Anna Layton said, I think this is a great quote, "A kid is not going to make a better decision with odds disclosure." It's absolutely right.
It's true.
Like a kid, if they see the numbers on the thing, they're not going to give a shit. They're still going to click the thing.
Half the kids can't do maths.
Exactly.
Don't know what percentages are.
I mean, I still don't know what percentages are. I hate percentages.
You're still a kid.
Exactly. And she was also really critical of the ESRB's recent ratings change to add in-game purchases as like a descriptor, like a bracket, and questioned like this isn't enough because that could be a DLC character or loot boxes, and those are two very different things. One's actual new content that can be quite compelling. One's a toxic gambling mechanic that's designed to exploit people. And then there's a really interesting quote here from a guy called Kevin White, and he's part of the National Council on Problem Gambling, which means he's obviously, he's hot on it. He knows about gambling and the bad side of it, so he's got some really good points. Whether or not loot boxes meet criteria for a gambling device in a particular jurisdiction, and whether or not players recognize or understand the risks, additional consumer protection features must be put in place to prevent users from developing gambling problems. So he's saying it doesn't matter whether you define them as gambling, we need to make sure that people don't get the same problems they get with what is considered gambling in like slot machines and whatnot.
Someone with a rational voice in the matter.
Yeah. And he mentions groups like young people or like ill people or like war veterans, or apparently all of those groups are really prone to getting into gambling and associated problems with it.
Yeah, it's the vulnerable, right? It's the weak and vulnerable, the less mentally strong. The people who've had issues in their lives are looking for some sort of escape. Drugs you can use. You find alcohol.
A vice of any kind.
Yeah, gambling. I mean, it gives you a cheap thrill when you win, but it ruins your life.
Exactly. And he put forward a really interesting comment that it's kind of obvious, but I hadn't really considered it. And it's the idea. He says that people who make in-app purchases are likely to take up gambling, and then gamblers are likely to make in-app purchases. And it seems kind of like a no-brainer, but I hadn't really considered that it goes both ways.
Yeah,
which I thought was interesting. And he believes the certifications boards like the ESRB should be entirely third-party, and I totally agree because otherwise their biases and stuff will come into effect like it does now. Instead of actually doing what's best for the consumer and the industry, it's doing what's best for the people making the games.
Yeah.
So there's a quote here: "Nobody in the gambling issue would ever trust a slot machine manufacturer to self-certify that their machines and the odds and randomness of their machines perform as they say."
Yeah, it's kind of picking up what I mentioned earlier about making sure that the odds that they disclose are actually right.
May the odds be ever in your favour.
But they have it. That's a lot of kind of happenings around.
Yeah, we've kind of bounced on. So if you want to follow it up, by all means do. There's a lot of stuff that came out of this whole committee meeting.
But are they going far enough? Does this help at all? I mean, that's the question at hand. Obviously, you know what we think. I don't think that this changes anything, and then this shouldn't weaken our stance towards loot boxes and having them eradicated completely, which is what we're in favour of on the channel. I think it's just a way of trying to appease the masses by just some mouthpiece saying, "Oh, we're doing something, we're putting some positive measures in place to change." It's like it's not doing anything. They're still there. Kids can still buy them. There needs to be a lot more done, and this isn't halfway near enough to the end that we're seeking here. But that's our first loot box discussion out of the way, and any feelings of your own, leave them in the comments below. I think we should move on to a non-loot box story, and then
come back to loot boxes.
Come back to
let's have a break.
So next up, we're going to talk about Ooblets. Now, this is a story we covered earlier in the week about what was the name of the dev team? I didn't even write it down, but
Glumberland or something.
They're making a game called Ooblets, and they signed an exclusivity deal with Epic Store. People weren't happy. There was a huge Reddit thread popped up about it, and everyone was angry. Everyone went to Discord and abused them. Everyone went to Twitter and not everyone, a lot of people went to Twitter and abused them, and there's been a lot of backlash towards this two-man independent team. 2-man, 2-person. It was a man and wife team, as it turns out, Ben and Rebecca.
I didn't realise they were a couple.
They've been subject of a lot of online harassment, right? And we kind of touched on that in our video, and the primary purpose of the video that we produced this week was to highlight how not to announce an Epic Games exclusivity.
Because the announcement that was the problem.
Because the tone of his message wasn't great, and that's why he was getting so much backlash. We did mention in the video itself that there's a line as to where you should draw in terms of your behaviour and your backlash. You should voice your concerns to them, but don't go across the line. Don't go harassing people. Don't go personally attacking them, and don't go threatening them. And just don't go there, guys, because it makes you the toxic person that he says that everyone is. But anyway, this is the update, right? Now, this whole story is mainly around harassment now. So let's put on the back burner the fact that he ballsed up with the announcement. This is about harassment in the games industry now. This is taking a whole new turn. So a lot of journalists now are speaking out against toxicity in the games industry, in the communities, and this is what we try to avoid, guys. This is why we don't hurl abuse at people. This is why we don't go and harass people and make shit up and doctor screenshots and videos and things and just be toxic bastards, because this is what it proliferates. Is that the right word? It just makes it all big. The whole snowball against the argument against toxic entitled gamers just gets bigger and bigger, and you're providing them the evidence for it. Anyway, I'll jump into what's actually said. So Ben posted an update on his blog on Tuesday the 6th, and it's called Regarding What's Been Happening. Now, this is his kind of response to all the backlash, and I picked out quite a few quotes, and we can go through kind of what's been said here, because it is quite interesting to follow up on and to see how things are going down, so we can inform ourselves on what's happening, and maybe not get so worked up maybe next time. I don't know. Unfortunately, quite a number of people, or them, have decided to cross multiple lines in the realms of harassment. So addressing the harassment straight off, this is his opening gambit of that. This whole thing's about the harassment he's been getting. We were totally unprepared for the attention we got from the broader gaming internet community, which was fueled by a deep misunderstanding of the tongue-in-cheek tone as condescending and patronising, which is what we covered in the video. We said it was condescending. We also said it was probably an attempt at being funny.
Yeah, an attempt. But I think calling that a misunderstanding is a bit odd, because he's obviously misunderstood how passionate people are about the Epic Games thing for him to feel the need to make a post like this. Whether or not he agrees or not, whether with the backlash, is irrelevant. People feel a certain way, and regardless of how you feel, that's going to stay the case.
A bit that I haven't got a quote for, but he did say that he was only expecting this message to go out to his fan or the fans of the game, not the broader community. He wasn't expecting it to go to Reddit. He wasn't expecting so many eyes to see the announcement and get upset about it. And his quote is, "It was a stupid miscalculation on my part," which is an admission of, I should have known better. I miscalculated it. I should have known better. So he's kind of trying to say here, it was supposed to be a joke, but it was misunderstood to be condescending and patronizing. That's not a misunderstanding. That is just condescending and patronizing.
It's not. He's not apologizing for it. It's like you took it the wrong way. Like,
no apologies there. But he does say it was a stupid miscalculation. Call himself stupid. I mean, it wasn't me said that. About the Discord comments. So a part of the grievances were the way that he was treating the people on the Discord. Now, we said at the time in the video that these are the people who have probably most aligned with the studio, who are expecting the game, who are anticipating the game to come out, and he was very short with them. He was patronizing with them again.
Some of them did come in after the outrage had started, and that's part of the problem. It wasn't just fans. But
and that's what he said. I very foolishly engaged with these people. He's talking about the people who came in after the fact, not the actual core fans of his. Sometimes just answering, and sometimes making jokes, and often saying things in exasperation. I can understand that. It was obviously a mistake to engage in that way. I unintentionally threw a lot of fuel on the fire because my messages were screenshotted without any of that context. Going on to defend himself, but yes, it was a mistake, and I can understand how the way he feels having been attacked for a decision that he's made. So I can kind of give him a little bit of a leeway for being a dick, but still, you got to be better than that.
I can understand your stance.
If you run the company,
he doesn't justify it.
If you're trying to get money off people, you can't be a dick to the public. You cannot be a dick to the public.
It's unprofessional at the bare minimum.
So as some of the hate that they've received, some examples of it, they're pretty bad, but I'm going to read some of them, right?
They're quite
just so that you understand what depth people will go to, and what the level that he's having to deal with this at. So one guy says, "I really hope that you and your whore wife off yourselves after your game flops. It makes a lot of sense that you shoved your head in Epic's ass for a few extra bucks after finding out you're a Jew." That is disgusting. That is absolutely reprehensible. Shit like that should never be said. It screams of, I'm a 15-year-old kid who's trying to be cool. It's just bad. It's not good. We said there's a line that needs to be drawn, guys, and that is completely crossed the line on many levels. That should never be said. I don't know if it should ever read all these, but I want to, because I want to explain to you what these guys have to put up with. Because as much as we disagree with how he went about with his announcement, this is worse. This is a lot worse. This overshadows everything, right?
And these people are the toxic, entitled gamers that he was trying to address, but it just went wrong.
Another person. Swallow Bleach, who seeks Patreon support, then goes to Epic. Have fun with the 3 people that will play this abomination of a game. Again, just an utter, complete joke of a comment. Like, who would comment something like that? Another one. If I see you in the streets, you're going to have your face smashed in as a wake-up call, Mr. Entitled. That's not going to happen, keyboard warrior. You're just a 12-year-old skinny little shit who isn't going to smash anybody's face. You're just using your anonymity to threaten these guys and make these guys' lives a misery because you didn't agree with something that they said. For fuck's sake, grow up. Next one. You ignorant piece of shit. I hope you get knocked out and pissed on. Well done, nice. In Discord, scummy bastard. Again, it's crossing the line. It's totally crossing the line. It shouldn't be said. The very last one was directed at his wife, Rebecca. I've been crying non-stop for the last 2 days and feeling like the world has collapsed around me, is what she originally said. Now, this was quoted in this reply, and the reply was, "Oh, really? How about you kill yourself instead? It would be funny if you and the other shitlord got terminally ill and saw each other slowly fading away." It really does fade my
That's the faith in humanity.
Faith in humanity.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
it. It's like,
who the fuck are these people?
but this is just 5 of, he says,
Hundreds
thousands.
of thousands.
He's
Yeah.
tens, even hundreds of thousands. I mean, maybe most of them aren't like this. Maybe most of them. This is the problem. See, when people comment shit like this, he's allowed to mischaracterize, or what he does is mischaracterize all the legitimate grievances as just entitled toxicity, which is what we raised in the.
It's
in the
an
video
easy
as well.
mistake for him to make, because
When you're seeing
the horrible ones,
when you're seeing
yeah.
a wall of negative comments, and among them are these types of comments, like, it's easy to misinterpret what a legitimate concern might be, like the one we read out in the video, and then just ban them all together as some sort of toxic entitled bullshit, which is what happens. This kind of rhetoric should not be done, guys. You're not representing the gaming community as a whole.
Makes everyone look bad.
Yeah, you're making us all look bad. You're making the story now about you and about your shit, your arsiness, rather than the issue at hand, which is the way that he dealt with the announcement as well as the Epic exclusivity thing. That's on the back. Nobody cares about that anymore because you're in the headlines. It's ridiculous. Anyway, my rant out of the way. He carried on. I challenge anyone to be on the receiving end of this for a few minutes, hours, days, and not come to the conclusion that a huge segment of the broader gaming community is toxic. This is where I'm got to call him out on this, because I don't think a huge segment of the broader gaming community is toxic. He's saying that a huge segment, like, what does he mean by huge? Obviously, the majority, he could have used the word majority, which meant more than half, which would be a gross over-exaggeration in my eyes. I think even saying a huge segment of the broader gaming community is toxic is, again, another huge, gross exaggeration.
The negative comments are always louder than the positive. If you're mad about something, you're more likely to say something than if you are when you're happy about something.
Yeah, I think I'll let him off on this one, judging by the tone of some of these messages he's been receiving. But still, he should try and not characterize every grievance as toxic and entitled, because some people might be saying very legitimate things that you just don't hear because you're blinded by all this toxicity that's in front of you. It's a mistake that you're doing that. But anyway, we can let him off because of everything that has been thrown at him. He carries on. I'm not a PR company representing some megacorp, just a dude talking to people like a human. Yes. This is so evident, right? Obviously, he's not a PR guy, because maybe this is the reason why companies use PR representatives in the first place, because people make mistakes so easily, and this is like a huge mistake that he's made here.
Yeah, it's why there are professionals who are like trained to handle this sort of stuff.
Yeah. So then he went doubling down on the "we don't owe you anything" wording. I just summarised it here rather than talk about it, which is true, but it's not. Again, it's not what you want to say to your public or the public in general.
Yeah, you owe people who have backed the game like a moral thing, because they've helped pay for it to be made. You don't owe these idiots who are just giving you abuse. You don't fucking owe them shit.
He carries on. Whenever I've mentioned that we, as random people, happen to be making a game, don't owe these other random people anything, they become absolutely enraged. I recognise that none of this post equates to an apology in any way, that a lot of the mob is trying to obtain, and that's by design. A portion of the game community is indeed horrendously toxic, entitled, immature, irrationally angry, and prone to joining hate mobs over any inconsequential issue they can cook up. Which
admits it's not an apology there.
Yeah.
Which I kind of respect, because he's like, oh yeah, I'm not just gonna apologise on behalf of you fools and you horrible people. I'm not going to apologise to you, but you do need to apologise to the people you've been pissing off who are, you know, have legitimate problems with what you've done.
Yeah, he's still missing the point, and this is the whole reason why all these like hateful messages and all this harassment and that is so bad for everybody, because it muddies the waters so badly, and it allows them to get away with not addressing the issues, not addressing the legitimate concerns. So, you know, for God's sake, guys, just I'm not saying that you guys are them people, but we need to stand together and call this type of behavior out above everything else, because it overshadows our messages. It overshadows what we're trying to achieve with some of these causes. It overshadows everything in the industry, right? Anyway, he carries on. The last quote here. A game being available on one platform or another, someone's tone or them calling you entitled is not enough to justify a harassment campaign targeting 2 indie game developers or anyone for that matter. I agree. No, I totally agree with him there. Like, it's not enough to justify a harassment campaign. We shouldn't be harassing these people. In fact, there's little justification to ever participate in that kind of movement. These mobs represent the worst manifestation of human psychology and social behavior. Our urge to attack weaker outgroups, to let group mentality justify our actions, and to delight in violence and anger. But I agree, there's no justification to ever participate in that kind of movement. He's characterizing the movement as a hate-filled movement, which is attacking people. I agree on that level. Yeah, it's not just movements are there for a reason, to get people to change things like loot boxes and that. Like, that's fine. You have to draw the line with harassment, though. I think that's he says a lot of truth there, and I agree with him a lot. Okay, and this is what the whole thing's about. It's all about harassment. Yeah. So we agree with him on that. The mobs represent the worst manifestation of human psychology. I don't know if that's just being over exaggerated for the sake of making a point. But it is a bad manifestation of human psychology, that's for sure. Yeah, it's just fortunate that none of this has spilled over into the real world yet. It's just online hate, which is, I mean, not trying to say it's not unpleasant, of course it is, but at least there's nothing physical happening yet. Yeah. But anyway, before we end this raises a question for me about the role of influencers in propagating the hate and the messages that we're sending out there, because this is always something that I try and balance out when generating content on YouTube, and being, especially because a lot of it is negative or a lot of it is trying to incite some sort of change. We're not trying to generate hate in any way, shape or form, right? And that hopefully that comes through in our content. I hope that came through in the video that we covered, that we were balanced in terms of don't be sending personal messages, don't be hating on these people. This is just, just voice your opinions and then move on. Jim Sterling himself took a different approach. He said on Twitter, because he made a video about the Ooblets, I think it was the Inquisition thing or whatever. In the wake of the Ooblets team being dogpiled, harassed and threatened over epic exclusivity, I've made my video on the topic private for now. The harassment is not fucking on, and I don't want to even indirectly encourage it. So he's taking that responsibility to heart. And I think that having watched his video, he wasn't as... that's the problem with people who watch videos, and the problem with generating content is that if you omit something, if you don't say something, people assume that it doesn't count. So if we don't say don't go harass people, people assume that we're endorsing people's going to harass. And I think that was Jim Sterling's mistake. He was criticizing them as for doing what they did, but what he didn't say was he didn't say, let's not go and harass these people, let's not. Yeah, it's the idea that if you're not condemning it, you're condoning it, which isn't the case. Yeah. But it's an easy mistake to make, and everyone does it. So in retaliation, or in response to somebody who questioned his responsibility on Twitter, which was the question put to him like this: at what point do you think making ranty videos crosses over from informing opinion to fomenting hate? Genuinely curious. So Jim Sterling had numerous tweets, a thread of tweets to reply to this guy, and he put it like this: part of the job is assessing this and always asking the question. There's a reason I generally keep personal names out of the discussion. I focus on companies and brands except for unique instances or when it's high-ranking executive pulling the strings of said companies. The topics I've covered this year are genuinely fury-inducing for me when it comes to the exploitation and abuse of the industry, and I don't feel bad about being angry over it or sharing that anger, but I try and direct the anger in the right direction. I will say I think the majority of this work is a little more coordinated than ranty videos, though I dig deep into these things and draw from over the decade of experience covering the industry's behaviour. Angry and excessively energetic, yes, but not just a ranty video. I always do my best to direct anger towards the system and the corporate shit within it. Hell, my Ooblets video was mostly focused on that too, but when individuals get targeted with threats, it poisons the well. As a frequent receiver of threats and hate, I have no time for it. So obviously, this whole episode highlights a lot of our responsibility as a community, and it does have us questioning as content creators where we draw the line in terms of, because we do have to raise exceptions to a lot of things that happen in the industry, but where do we draw the line? Can we call Bobby Kotick a greedy fat bastard? Probably not. So we can call him greedy, but it crosses the line when you use like derogatory terms like that. Not that I did call it not then, that was just an example, right? But it just goes to show people could easily mischaracterize what we say, and that's why we have to be very careful about how we communicate to the audience.
Not every time you say anything bad is harassment. It's when it becomes like personal or like repeated over, like I think that's the part of the literal definition of bullying. I don't have it in front of me, but it has to take place like over time and be repeated. Yeah. So if you say one horrible thing, it's still horrible. But
this is why it's difficult for me, because we understand that a certain amount of people who watch this video or our video on Ooblets or all our videos will be hate filled, and will maybe it's 0.001% of the viewers, but they will go and make those abusive comments on Twitter, and that's not what we're trying to achieve at all. We're trying to achieve discourse, we're trying to achieve enlightenment, we're trying to get people to discuss the issues and come to a greater understanding of the issues, and maybe then have a rational discussion and try and change other people's minds. Hurling abuse at people doesn't change anyone's minds. No. All it does is it solidifies their stance against that type of abuse, and it allows them to mischaracterize the legitimate concerns, and it undermines all the hard work that we do. So please, guys, if you've ever mind to ever go and abuse anyone on social media about the issues that we cover, do not do it. On behalf of us, on behalf of the community as a whole, don't do it.
If you do that sort of thing, you're a piece of shit and you don't belong in the gaming community.
We can call them guys a piece of shit. But yeah, I think it was worth going through that, because we've all got a responsibility, because people like this who are subject to these harassment campaigns, firstly, from their point of view, we never want to see this happen to people like this. But secondly, like we said, it undermines everything that we try to achieve and all the causes that we're part of, and the things that we're trying to change in the industry. You undermine everything when you take that course of action. So it is important. Anyway, that being said, let's move on to our next
our next loot box discussion. So this, interestingly, came out just before, or like the day before, the FTC loot box discussion, and it's that Rocket League are getting rid of their random loot boxes and are replacing them with they're still there, so it's a bit weird, loot boxes which will disclose the odds. So it's kind of the same sort of thing, but it happened first.
They're doing it like
Fortnite's system.
Right? Yeah. Fortnite's llamas are the llama loot box things, the pinata things. They're transparent or something else.
Yeah, you can X-ray them and see exactly what you're getting, and X-ray llamas. It still has the. You open it and it explodes into confetti and it's pretty and it's exciting or whatever, but you know exactly what you're getting.
Well, all that does though is it defers the next
step. Yeah,
the next step, because you know what's in this one, but as soon as you open that one, there's still a randomized element for the next one that comes through. Yeah, you're able to buy. The one that you're buying currently right now is transparent, right? You can see what's in it, but you don't know what the next one queued up is going to be.
The ultimate solution is just take it away and let me buy whatever's inside it.
Fuck them off.
Or not at all.
Anyway, what's Rocket League doing?
So, in case you don't know, Psyonix is the developer behind Rocket League. And what is Rocket League, I hear you ask, if you've been living under a rock? It's awesome. I love Rocket League. I haven't played it for ages, but I love a good bit of Rocket League. I
considered even buying it the other day then, because on the back of this news. But I'll probably wait until the loot box is gone.
I'm so bad at it. We used to play it in uni all the time, and one of my mates was really good, and me and one of my other mates did 3-on-3. We were both really shit, and then over time I felt like we really accomplished something, because we were holding our own, we were scoring. We couldn't fucking fly or do any of that shit, but we could score, and things we did, it was deliberate, and it was great. But anyway, so Rocket League is a vehicular soccer video game developed and published by Psyonix. The game was first released for Microsoft Windows and PlayStation 4 in July 2015, with ports for the Xbox One, Mac OS, Linux, and Nintendo Switch being released later on, and that's from the Wikipedia page. And it is described as soccer, but with rocket-powered cars. And if that doesn't sell you on how dope this game is, I don't know what will. We're not sponsored or anything. I just really like Rocket League.
Yeah,
it's like the only multiplayer game I'm really into.
The only question mark for me, I mean, played Rocket League on the PC in the past, and the only question mark over it for me was the randomized loot, and this is what they're trying to address here.
Yeah.
So like I said, I nearly bought it on the Switch the other day. Yeah. But I'll wait until they get rid of them. Yeah.
So it's a huge popular game. Hit 50 million players in September, so that was just over a year ago. So it's massive. Everyone loves it. So they announced this in a blog post saying, here at Psyonix and Epic Games as a whole, because they are now exclusive on PC to the Epic Games Store. That was quite recent, but I can't remember when. It was pulled from Steam after release and is at Epic, which is a whole controversy on its own. We are dedicated to creating the best possible experience for our players all over the world. In pursuit of that goal, later this year, we will remove all paid randomized crates from Rocket League. Crates are is their name for loot boxes.
Surprise mechanics.
Replacing them with a system that shows the exact items you're buying in advance. This is similar to changes implemented earlier this year by Fortnite Save the World team. And then it carries on a little bit. Rocket Pass, Premium, DLC cars, and esports shop items will continue to be offered for direct purchase alongside our new system. So the new transparent loot thing is going to still be there, but if you want to buy all the cars and stuff, they're not changing. The standard microtransactions are going to be the same.
Yeah.
We will share information including timelines and rollout specifics in the coming months. Now, I like the line, dedicated to creating the best possible experience for our players, because that is an implication that they know loot boxes aren't the best possible experience. I mean, that's obvious to any actual gamer in the world, but maybe the ESA can take a note.
Exactly, yeah.
They're not the best thing for players.
They don't enhance your gameplay. Like the
they
ESA
hinder
said.
it.
They enhance your... Even if it did enhance, like we said, it's monetizing is the issue.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be replacing the random crates, loot boxes, in all regions, and that's the key thing. It's not completely getting rid of them, which I've seen as some media headlines and interpretations. That's not what's happening. They're taking the random ones out and putting transparent ones in where you can see what you're getting. So the loot boxes are still there, but you know what's in them. Can't stress that enough. And as we touched on earlier, this is following Fortnite's example, which they implemented back in January, where you can see inside their pinatas, and they call it like X-ray or something like that. And you also can't get multiples of the same items, which is cool. Well, I think that's, again, like a no-brainer. Why isn't that the case already? Mm-hmm. But hey-ho. And yeah, as we've said, the loot box stuff was already implemented in places like Holland and Belgium where it was illegal, but now it's going to be rolled out everywhere, no matter where you are. And there's no clear reason for what prompted them to do this, especially as I said, this came just before the FTC info came out.
Yeah.
But I reckon part of it's probably to do with them being on the Epic Games Store.
They were bought by Epic Games.
Yeah.
So Epic Games now own Psyonix since May this year. So it's probably a lot to do with that. They were probably riding high with that, but because obviously Epic own Fortnite, and that's how they do it in Fortnite. I think they just bring in Rocket League in line with how they do it on Fortnite.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be... I mean, I don't know personally, but I feel like it wouldn't be too difficult to implement because you can just take the folks who did it on Fortnite and get them to do it in Rocket League.
I mean, I think the preempting regulation is what they're doing. They're trying to take half a step back because they've gone so far with these loot boxes. They're taking half a step back in the mind to with the trying to stop the regulation coming in and being so harsh as it is, because they're expecting maybe the US is going to regulate, maybe other jurisdictions end up regulating, and to preempt that, just to take the heat off, the pressure off the people who are raising exceptions to loot boxes just a little bit.
Yeah. So there's some interesting responses on Reddit about this. There's one guy called Polygonal polygonal games. This could be great or shit, but can't be any worse than gambling in a kid's game. In a game, yes. No, I can't read. In a game kids play, so good on that, I guess. And someone commented back, exactly, this will suck for the people who trade, which is something I hadn't really considered, but not really. Well, I don't think it'll really be that much of an issue because, I mean, you won't have the random chance to get something really good and then sell that on to someone else or trade it with people. But frankly, this might be a harsh or ignorant stance, but I don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
If your little sub-economy might get harmed by it, if what you're profiting from in that economy is harmful to everybody else.
That's it. And the other people raising exceptions I've seen were the YouTube influencers who make a living off opening loot boxes and shit. Like, if you imagine the people who do it for FIFA Ultimate Team, and they literally sit there, they open FIFA Ultimate Team loot boxes, and everyone's watching. They scream, they shout, everyone's all excited, all the viewers are all like engaged in that. They do it that too for Rocket League. And now those people who do that primarily as a means of content and revenue from YouTube will now be shit out of luck because you won't be able to do that anymore. So they're the ones raising exception because they're hitting their bottom line. They're hitting their capacity to make money off their videos on YouTube. And you know what? Who gives a fuck, man? Find some better content to make. Put some effort in. God's sake.
I'm not going to tell you what kind of content to watch, but I think that content is bullshit. So then this guy who was talking about trading stuff, he goes on a bit more. However, crates are pretty much gambling, and I can also see this being cracked down on or banned in various countries over the next few years anyway. It's exactly what will be happening with the FCC stuff and Sony, Microsoft and Nintendo doing that. And then says, that said, Fortnite's system also encourages kids to spend massive amounts of money on cosmetics, so I'm not sure it's going to be much better. Now,
going to be the same.
That's exactly right, because the cosmetics issue, you can say, oh, it's just cosmetics, it doesn't matter, which is, okay, push that to the side. In games like Fortnite, it is so intense with how much it's pressuring to get the skins, like stay up to date. And I can't remember what it's called, but in Fortnite, the Fortnite player community, there's sort of like bullying that happens if you're a default character skin. There's a word for it, but I can't remember what it was. If you're not playing as like one of the high level ones from the latest season, you're going to get bagged on. And this cosmetics thing is still part of the issue, but it's not gambling, so it's a bit different. And I still think it's a huge problem.
It is, and again, it's not going far enough. I mean, it's good headlines for them, and that's what they want, right? It's just, we're taking out loot boxes. No, you're not. The loot box is still there. Okay. Because if there's one loot box queued up, there's still a surprise factor in what the next loot box is going to be that comes along on the conveyor belt. You buy the one that's right in front of you, and then the next one appears with all this randomized loot in it. It's still randomized loot, whether you like it or not. And again, it's just them trying to pull the wool over by trying to appease you a little bit, taking half a step back so that you don't go so hard on them. Oh, look, guys, we've made changes. It's better. Look, we've got odds now, and you can see through our loot boxes. You just deferring the issue. It's just still there. It's the same issue, but it just looks a bit better.
Yeah, that's all it is.
It reads a bit better in the headlines.
But think of the poor animators and artists who have to animate the loot box exploding. We can't get rid of them. They'll be out of a job. No, just do something better. Do something moral.
That's business, isn't it? Yeah. Business is business. Anyway,
I think that is it for all of our stories today.
Those were deep conversations today. I feel like my brain's fried.
Yeah, I'm knackered.
Totally fried after all that. Anyway, we've got Discord questions to take now. Now, these are questions put to us by our Patreon community, the faithful supporters of our content over on patreon.com/prettygoodgaming. These are the people that ensure that we keep making content, because without them, we wouldn't be able to afford to keep the lights on, to be able to pay the bills and stuff like that. So for those of you who do support us, we really appreciate it. For those of you who are thinking about it, head over to patreon.com/prettygoodgaming. For as little as $1 every month, you get early access to this podcast, as well as access to our Discord community where you can throw questions to us on for the podcast, as well as the Bad Dad Jokes channel, which is always worth reading and stuff. And there's also other rewards and stuff there too. Go and check them out. Anyway, first question this week comes from Mr. Assassin, or just Assassin. What are your thoughts on the upcoming Apple Arcade coming to iOS devices? Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, Apple Arcade is a gaming service unlike any other, according to them, with over 100 groundbreaking new games designed by the world's most innovative developers. Now, we're talking about mobile games here, guys. Don't get too excited. But this is the way that Apple are promoting it now. And they've got a list on the YouTube video trailer about Apple games. It's basically you pay money to get access to a library of games like any other subscription service. But these games, some of the games on the subscription service are being made by the following developers: Charles Cecil for Revolution Software, Beyond the Steel Sky, which actually looked pretty interesting, but then again, if it's playable on mobile games, you shouldn't undervalue mobile games too much, because the technology in mobile devices is so far advanced now. I mean, when I started gaming, like the hardware we used to game on was nowhere near as good as even this phone right on my table now. Never mind that's a 3-year-old phone. So it doesn't mean that the games that are being made on mobile aren't great, or don't have the capacity to be great. Let's put it that way. But what it does mean is that, I don't know, there's more to it. I'll just read through this and I'll get into my thoughts. So Sam Rosenthal and Cedric Adams, the Snowman, the game band, Where Cards Fall, don't know any of them. Hironobu Sagaguchi, Final Fantasy franchise. Mistwalker Corporation, Fantasian, whatever that is. Dennis Milkan, Kunabi Brother, Lifelike, Becker Saltzman, Finji, Overland. All those words are random to me. I don't know what they mean. Right. Yep. Okay, so in my eyes, this could be good. This could be good. For me, it's not for me right now. Firstly, I don't own an Apple device, a mobile device anyway, but it could be good, right? Think of it this way. Like, hear me out. I know it's mobile. Don't you all have phones? Whatever. It's mobile, but the way that mobile games are developed now get a lot of criticism. They're all geared around their in-game apps, in-game purchases, where it's all around microtransactions. That's how mobile games currently operate, and this is. They're the ones who've influenced our AAA games, and that's why they make so much money on mobile games through all these Candy Crush microtransactions or whatever, that they've brought them over now to daily spins and all that shit. It's all these mechanics from mobile games that have infected our AAA sphere. But now, if you give support for these mobile titles to these developers, they don't have to monetize in them ways, and they're free to explore different mobile type of experience outside of those monetization practices, which is good, right? It might be the beginning of some sort of change and some sort of good to come out of mobile devices. Like I said, when I was gaming back in the day, when I was my kid's age, I was gaming on a ZX Spectrum, right? Commodore Amiga, like all those like old devices that were nowhere near as powerful as the devices we carry around in our pockets. Even in my watch, there's probably more processing power than I had back then gaming, right? Which says something, right? There is an opportunity for some great games and great gaming experiences to be had mobile. Like, whether you agree with me or not, that's up to you. But I strongly feel that there is. The problem with the mobile industry right now is the monetization. Something like this might not be great right now, but if Apple supports these developers and means that you get a fully playable game on this subscription service that doesn't include microtransactions, then who knows what could happen from it. So it's potentially very good, but I'm still very reserved because it's another subscription service. I don't know how much it is. I haven't looked into it, but it's coming in future. It could change the way that people game on mobile, that's for sure, but it's a big if.
Yeah, mobile could be great, but it's just not.
It's got the potential to be really good.
Because as what's this guy's name? Chang, guy from the Diablo team. Don't you guys have phones?
Don't you guys have phones?
Everyone does have a phone.
Yeah. It's obviously there's some people who just vehemently opposed to playing mobile games, but I'm not opposed to it. I like playing games when I'm out and about and stuff, or I'm traveling on a plane, in a car, whatever. It's a good time to, if you got this powerful device in your pocket, all it needs is a decent game on it.
Yeah.
I know the Samsung Galaxy Note 10, it was just announced last night, right? And there's this Play Galaxy feature on it, which allows you to stream in home, or I don't know if it's outside of home as well, your PC game from your PC to your phone. So all you have to do is get like a cradle with a controller thing, like a Switch for your phone, and you could be sat on your couch, or you could be walking around the house playing a game like a Switch, but streamed from your PC. That's just an example of where this technology is going. I'm not going to sit in and say that's going to be great, because it probably isn't, because it's streaming. Although, compare it to Google Stadia, latency is probably going to be better than that. But we don't know a lot about it just now. Like I said, it's just been announced. But there's capacity. There's the future will probably be really, really good in terms of mobile gaming. That's if they go in the right way. But anyway,
yeah,
that's a lot about mobile games. That's a big section of mobile games. Let's talk about something else, Henry.
Well, luckily next up, it isn't really a question, but this comes from Johnny Flaps, which is a funnier sounding name than I think it
Johnny
really
Flaps.
should be.
It is a funny name.
Rather than ask you something, I'm going to tell you something, so here goes. Each month, like clockwork, my Patreon payment is taken out from my account. You guys are the only people I deem worthy of any support from myself, as I am poor, weary, old, and decrepit, much like yourself.
We're not worthy.
We are not worthy. Anyway, upon this payment, which I'll apologise for now, is the lowest, most meagre of tiers, and the princely sum of 99p monthly. Yeah, don't
It's
apologise.
infinitely more than the majority of people who watch us give, so put it that way.
Is for some reason treated as a potential robbery by my bank, shown by their monthly attempts to intercept said payment. Nonetheless, these attempts are thwarted by myself, a pretty good veteran subscriber. So I guess I lied a little and have a question. As I'd like,
I love like the journey he's taking us on.
We've got a real good narrative here from Johnny Flaps. As I'd like to know if you have ever heard of anyone else having these kinds of security problems with Patreon, as I only usually get these kinds of problems when I try to make large purchases, TVs, etc. Anyway, keep making videos. You are the only ones who seem to talk sense. Peace out, Johnny Flaps.
We're probably not the only ones who seem to talk sense, but we thank you,
Johnny Flaps. Keep on flapping, Johnny.
Keep flapping, Johnny.
Does Patreon get flagged by anyone else's bank for problems?
That's the question that we're going to put to you guys. Let us know if you I don't know if you like what bank is it. There's probably it's always the bank in it. It's all they're doing is taking measures to try and stop fraud and stuff like that, right? Yeah. So that's all that is.
Yeah, the bank is doing their job. It's just a bit of an inconvenience.
But it's like, who's Patreon? Maybe it's a new bank. There's loads of new banks popping up. Like,
part of it's probably because Patreon is an American company and it operates in dollars. And if you say you pay 99p, maybe your bank's getting confused by that or something.
Maybe phone them up and whitelist them, or I don't know.
Whitelisting is probably a good idea. Too
much effort. But still, thanks for your comment, Johnny Flaps, and let us know anyone else who has problems with their banks. Now, Venticus Prime. We're going to have to change the tape before we get into Venticus Prime's question, because we're about to run out of tape on this SD card. I know it's not tape. It's
what year is this?
I know, 1984. We'll see in just a sec. And we're back. Now, Venticus Prime has a big follow-up question, paragraph, whatever you want to call it, from last week. We was talking about games being under attack by the media and such like, which is actually good timing, because this week is one of the biggest attacks of all by the US politicians scapegoating gaming as the cause for mass shootings and all that sort of nonsense. But this was his follow-up. To expand off my previous question, you guys mentioned a lot of stuff. There's also the World Health Organization gaming addiction nonsense, game journalists defending things like loot boxes, using corporate speak that you hear in politics, and real journalists that actually expose the bullshit being publicly smeared and persecuted by the gaming arm of corporate media in much the same way as that you see whistleblowers of government corruption receive. My point is that many of these situations may start out as rather simple and ridiculous situations that get attention for the same reason that, quotes, the evil that men do lives lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones. Bonus points if you know where that quote comes from. No idea.
Nope.
You can Google it quite quickly, but no. But hate and misrepresentation only garner so much attention. It's when things like governments and global organisations start getting involved, and when you notice similarities of actions, that I feel it is prudent to start looking at the duality that exists in many situations. Not everything is simply how you use it. Sometimes you have to read between the lines and look at the possibility of people being useful idiots. At the same time, every situation can wind up creating unintended side effects. I hope that helps you better understand where my question is coming from. It's so deep, man. It's so deep, Jensen's Command. What brand?
Whole paragraph.
What brand of cannabis are you smoking, man? Because that's deep. That's way too deep for me. I think I need some before I can enter the same mind space as you there. But yeah, again, there's a lot of misrepresentation. We touch on it a lot, really. We deal with it on a day-to-day in our comments, for God's sake. Yeah. But that's it. And
we'll probably get onto that a bit later in comments.
Yeah, people just using arguments or harnessing other people's arguments, harnessing organizations, harnessing any sort of rhetoric in order to push forward their own agenda, essentially. And that's where games comes into it, especially with this guns thing, right? It's like these politicians have got an agenda because what they don't want to do is say, oh, it's because there's so many guns in our country is why these are all happening. This is the ultimate defense, anyway, to anyone who did oppose our views on guns, right? Without guns, no gun crime. It's that simple, right? And that's the way we see it in the UK, because there's no guns, there's no gun crime. And then everyone's in the comments to us is like, oh, about knife crime. You can take away the knives as well. I mean, come on, guys. Like, we're talking about guns here. I mean,
you can't kill 20 people in 30 seconds with a knife. I mean,
yeah. Those grossly over-exaggerated statistics that they're thrown at us about like knife crime in London, yes, they're bad. I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying there's nothing is done about them, but we're talking about guns here. But anyway, I went off on another huge tangent, but still, it's these politicians trying to say something, trying to be seen as saying something, doing something about an issue, whereas they can't really fix the issue. So they're just scapegoating. They're just saying what needs to be said. They're using games against. They're using games to get themselves out of shit. Essentially, say, oh, it's just games. It's just this. It's just that. They didn't say movies, did they? When did they say movies? Like, there's more violent movies out there than games, but nobody says anything about movies because
not anymore anyway.
Yeah, because everyone knows it's bullshit.
Yeah, part of the article I read, which was about this conversation, said about how politicians won't lose any votes by saying this sort of stuff because they're people who support them. Chances are they're not gamers, or they don't care about that sort of thing, so they're just going to hear what they're saying and be like, oh yeah, you must be right, I've seen violent video games, I don't like that they're so violent. So they've got nothing to lose, and then their voters will appreciate what they're saying even though it's not accurate. Yeah,
but they will lose votes if they say that it's because there's so many guns or because we need to regulate guns. Yeah. I mean, that's the implication there, isn't it? And yeah, anyway, enough was said about that, and we've probably pissed off enough people talking about guns again, but fuck it, that's just what we do. We talk about things. So let's go. Let's move on.
Next question from Cloney99. Watching the podcast today, number 27, I had another thought. Gaz, you talked about how 25 years ago games had no microtransactions and loot boxes. This prompted me to comment, I am 25 now, and even I remember the times without loot boxes. It hasn't been that long. True, it hasn't been that long, especially, well, it's mainly in the mainstream in every single bloody game having them. This, however, reminded me of my university time. I studied games engineering, it's the name of the major here, don't at me, and my friends even were talking to me about how making games becomes more expensive and how loot boxes are fine and how cosmetics are okay. Look where that got us. Question. Do you guys often argue this topic with your friends or in public at all, outside of PGG? Do you feel the general public remembers games without microtransactions, surprise mechanics, or was the propaganda campaign of the gaming industry just that successful? Because I feel old, very old, when I am left alone, beaten and bloodied, fighting against EA and Activision, ruining my favourite games. P.S. Sorry for the long intro.
That was a huge question.
So the question is, do you speak about loot box kind of issues with your friends? I talk at them more than anything because most of them don't really give a shit about game. They'll play a little. They'll play like maybe a Red Dead. Like they're super casual, but they're not really FIFA or Call of Duty. But they're like, they can see, oh, that looks like a good game, but they're not that crazy about it. And I'll be like, yeah, loot boxes are bullshit. Oh, what's that? It's like a gambling thing. Oh, that's stupid. Why is that a thing? Games suck. Yeah, I know. Yeah, and that's kind of the end of the chat.
Yeah, I think you summed it up in what you said. Like, they just don't give a shit. It's that simple, isn't it? They don't game on a daily. Maybe they don't think about games. They don't think about the industry. They're not invested in it like we are. So they don't give a fuck. They just don't give a shit. They play a game. They might buy a game every 3 months. My brother's still playing Red Dead Redemption 2 now, and he bought it just after launch. You know what I mean?
Well, that's not to say these people are buying them. It's just they're apathetic to the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not a problem for them because it's not on the daily for them. It's not their cause to try and change anything in the industry like it is ours. So, yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Cloney again. Another question from Cloney. In the light of Monday's news story, the developer handling the Epic Games exclusivity announcement really poorly, what games have been ruined for you by things other than gameplay? What games do you specifically not buy, although you were interested in them, but something just put you off of it? So many games, and they're all like monetization for me. It's all monetization, loot boxes, or microtransactions that put me off buying games. 100%. It's like even a game from like Anthem. That was it. It was like
Anthem was one.
Online multiplayer. Those words kill interest for me. Yeah. Online multiplayer, online only. Oh, completely kill interest in a game. Cloney says, for me it was Anthem. I waited till after release because it was EA, and I was right. The game turned out to be shit, but I'm still sometimes commenting when news about the game hit. Quotes, I would love to play Anthem, but Anthem is shit. I am really angry about that. I thought this would be the game to make me quit World of Warcraft.
Yeah, so many games, like Destiny. I was like, oh, it's made by Bungie. They did Halo. That's awesome. Big multiplayer thing. I'm like, it looks fun, but it's just not the kind of game I'm going to enjoy, so I didn't bother. Got Destiny 2 on PSN when it was free. Had a good time. I was like, you know what, I'm glad I didn't like pay and invest in this franchise because it is fun, but there's nothing to keep me in. It's not my sort of thing. Deus Ex, what was the most recent one?
Mankind Divided.
That one. I didn't buy that one. Played the first one. Really liked the first one. I liked how you could do different approaches to missions. Thought that was really fun. I love a good stealth game. And then that one said that the ending was DLC or some shit. I was just like, nope. Yeah. Haven't followed it at all. Didn't even like watch it a playthrough on YouTube or anything like that. Like a story playthrough or anything. Just dropped it. Didn't give a shit.
Hopefully that answers the question, Mr. Cloney.
Okay, next up, Metal Shark. With the Glumberland Ooblets saga, what do you feel about the dynamic of them self-publishing after Microsoft's acquisition of Double Fine, who were previously going to publish? Do you think we'll see more developers end up in situations like this, e.g. arguably in over their heads with tasks typically handled by a publisher as collateral of Microsoft's acquisition spree? Is it likely a mistake will be made by others who are formerly using Double Fine for publishing Foam Sword games with their upcoming Knights and Bikes, for instance?
It's a good point that because they did make a huge mistake, PR blunder that maybe Double Fine would not have made if they were still in the conversation. So more developers end up in situations like this as collateral of Microsoft's acquisition spree. I don't know. You can't blame Microsoft though, I don't think, because Microsoft are just doing what they do as a business. They want to acquire stuff.
I think small like indie teams will benefit the most from going to something like Epic Store because they get all that extra money and they're the ones who need it the most, but they also have the most to lose because a big AAA game, they've got brand loyalty and recognition or whatever, so they're going to sell something no matter what. Not necessarily loads of units, but these small ones, if they handle this wrong, like the Ooblets team have, it's going to really fuck up their bottom line.
I think the lesson for independent developers out of all of this is just don't try and be funny. If you're preempting any sort of backlash, just keep it honest and keep it short, keep it concise, right? Don't make a huge like post where people can pick apart like every few sentences how you're how you're being a dick or whatever you're doing. Keep it short and concise, and maybe they can't use it to lynch you with it then. I mean, I don't know, maybe take a course on PR or something.
I mean, yeah.
You can see it happening more often though with the way that Epic are picking up now. On the back of this Ooblets thing, there's just so many more people who want to be upset about the Epic Games thing. They're just looking for the next big one. I think Ooblets was just everything aligned in terms of bad timing for them. It was just everyone was anticipating or waiting for the next outrage about Epic Games, and they just felt the brunt of it because they did have a really bad announcement, and it just went on from there. But
as long as you've got like a good handle on the business side of things as well as the development side, you'll probably be able to stabilize yourself in the rough water. But if not, could sink the whole operation.
Next question, Gabaris. Okay, here's my question for the week, and rejoice that it's only a tangentially connected to Galaxy 2.0. You still said it. I mean, there must be 4 weeks in a row. Galaxy 2.0, Gabaris. Come on.
Every week since it launched.
That's it. Galaxy.
Half the time you can't even answer it. It's just like, I don't know.
How do you organize / keep track of your games or other forms of digital collections? Or at what point do you think it's even necessary / useful to do something like that? Personally, for a few years, I've only marked my games with finished or favourite tags, and everything else was just clumped together in an alphabetical list. Once I started having trouble remembering what titles I could look for, I started using tags very loosely based on genres or styles, even though I'm pretty sure a lot of my picks would trigger most gamers. I think that this explains why you're so interested in a Galaxy 2.0.
You've got so many games you need to keep track of them.
So many games you need to tag them. I mean, who does that, Gabaris? Who tags games of finished or favourite? I just have them in directly and don't
uninstall them if you're not playing them. Well,
it's installed if I want to play it, or if I've got a mind to play it, I'll install it and leave it there.
Yeah.
So that when I sit down and I click what's installed, I've got a list of installed games. Okay, I'll play that one.
Well, because I've said before, I pretty much play all but exclusively physically on disc. But for a while I had a bunch of games on my PlayStation just in a folder just called download, so they weren't clogging up the dashboard. But in the end I deleted that whole folder because I deleted everything in it, uninstalled everything in it, and because my hard drive's full because it's too small, and then just re-download and reinstall stuff when I fancy it.
Yeah.
And now I've got better internet, it's so much easier. Although I do now have an external hard drive, so I need to shift a bunch of shit onto that.
Yeah. How do I organise? It's just organised in the library, that's it. It's just has the library lists them, usually in alphabetical order, essentially. It's just like throwing all your papers on one desk. Although if it was alphabetical, it'd be a little organised. Like there's no filing system, there's no organisation, there's no directory, there's no nothing, Gabaris. This is just me. You take me or you leave me. I'm a messy bastard when it comes to digital. It's digital. It doesn't clutter up your desk. You know what I mean? It's all digital. So it's fine for it to be a mess, if you ask me.
Think about it. My physical games aren't organised in any way. They're on like a rack, and they're just ones I'm more likely to play at the top and ones I'm less likely to play at the bottom. That's kind of it.
There you go.
All right, it's me next, right? So last question. Yeah, last question from Tons2112. Since the narrative is still being forced to games teach our children to do blah, 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 like blank, what real-life skills would you guys have liked to learn by playing games over the years? Being a plumber by playing Mario would have been nice, or a master chef from playing Overcooked.
Yeah, so it's relating to the games teach our kids to kill people, essentially, is what the politician said. So
there is one I saw.
If that was actually true, what would you like games to teach you to do? Maybe do karate or something? Some sort of martial arts? That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Or even something like playing FIFA, like a sports game, and instantly being really good at real sports. I think that'd be quite handy. Well, I suppose games like FIFA, they'll teach you the rules of it. Like,
if you don't know them, if you're a scrub and don't watch football.
I don't watch football and I know the rules of football. I remember once I had to explain the offside rule to someone, and I basically had to describe it using all of their friends. I was like, right, so if Elliot moves here and Curtis goes there, then Jimmy is offside.
Obviously.
So
it's funny you should say this, Tons, because you learn a lot from games throughout the years, and I certainly have. I remember playing Madden back in the day. I know how to play American football now. I know how the rules work. I know the downs work. Is the same. American football. I know how it works. Because it looks a bit
really
weird.
Bloody boring.
Well, it's actually better than things like cricket.
Oh, the best thing about cricket, and it's not the only good thing about cricket, is the commentators, because they're so he's knocked it for 6, like a Boris Johnson type.
Yeah. Old fuddy duddies.
What
learn a lot about history from games. Learn a lot about especially
Assassin's Creed's good for it because they're good for just filling it with lore.
Yeah.
Although history's not really lore. There's a bit of lore from their weird alien nonsense, but yeah, they're good for that.
Total War franchise taught me about the ancient Roman factions, as well as like medieval times, and Crusader Kings is a big one about actual history and like kings and stuff and how the feudal system worked. I had no idea about that until play a game like Crusader Kings. You learn a lot from games. You don't learn.
You didn't notice it as much. Because it's the same way, like you can learn all that sort of shit from watching a film. It just depends if it's engaging. If it's engaging your ability to learn, then you'll learn it.
I would say that game's taught me resource management, taught me about being, especially strategy games, and especially games where it's important to be, what's the word I'm looking for? To work quickly and concisely, as in, like Civilization, for example. At the very beginning of that, you have to use your moves very carefully, because if you take too long to build your first city, then all the other factions are like that much more advanced further than you, and you got to be very careful about where you're putting your city. I can't think of the word, but yeah, you learn a lot about being careful.
Yeah,
strategically.
I think something every gamer has learned, whether or not they realise it, is like a form of endurance and tenacity. Because the nature of most games, certainly action games anyway, is you're probably going to die. Even in easy ones, you're probably going to die because you'll misstep, you'll fall off the cliff, Crash Bandicoot's dead. And it instills you the idea of trying it again and doing it again. And even if it's hard, you're going to persevere to get through. And then it's taken to the extreme with FromSoft games like Dark Souls, and that's the extreme. And a lot of people are still into that. It's not for me though. But everyone, especially if you start young as a kid, I feel like it develops a level of tenacity in you.
No, I totally agree with that. Totally agree. And this concludes our questions for this week. Next, we're going to move on to the YouTube comments, and we have the triggered fanboy comment of the week. My fingers are so sweaty right now that my phone just didn't recognise my fingerprint. So
is it because the comment's so juicy it's setting
because
you
it's
off?
hot in here, man. We've sat here for over an hour already. But I do have a triggered fanboy comment of the week, and this was on the Kojima blasting, right? We were so mischaracterised in that video. It's like everyone was saying that apparently this guy deserves all the credit and Kojima doesn't deserve any. Does Kojima not deserve any credit just because one person changed it? It's like, that's not what we said. And it's specifically because we didn't say that Kojima still deserves a lot of credit, that they misinterpret what we're actually saying and assume that we say Kojima deserves not enough less credit. It's bullshit, man. Guys.
Even though I said within the first minute I'm a big fan of Hideo Kojima and everything he's done, but apparently no. we don't understand that he's like a favourite.
Okay, so the triggered fanboy comment of the week. Although there was loads to choose from, goes to Mr. Anthony Wooten. So this comment on the on that video, all caps, uploader is a fucking idiot. 5 exclamation marks. Go fuck yourself. 5 exclamation marks. Kojima for life. All one word. Not happy with letting it rest there. I replied, care to elaborate?
Because that could be just a troll comment.
Yeah.
So you gotta make sure.
I was like, this could be the triggered fanboy comment because it's proper triggered.
You're cultivating
so just come on, just give me
like
a little bit more.
flower in the greenhouse. You're giving it just a little bit of water.
He said, sure, I'll respond. You made a fucking stupid video paying out Kojima pretty much for clickbait. As far as I can see, this video is stupid. Like I said, go fuck yourself. And I said, come on, you can do better than that. I expect better. Call yourself a Kojima fan. You should be ashamed of yourself, I said.
Yeah, you're really setting him off now, no
right,
doubt.
He goes, yeah, lol, yeah, you're right about one thing. Not close to my best for sure, but it's like 3 a.m. here in Australia, making excuses.
Oh,
like
yeah.
he's not
like you're on a time limit to reply. You can just wait.
I don't have the patience to point out how many facts you have wrong in this video. On a side note, I have finished every single Metal Gear Solid game, and not including Metal Gear Solid Arcade, of course. I also met Kojima when he came to Sydney. You need to get back in your box, bro. Your video sucks. Man, that was juicy. We got so much out of him there, right? He completely explained why he's such a fanboy. He's met Kojima,
but
he's played all
didn't
the
say
games.
Why we were wrong.
Your video sucks.
He explained why he's mad, but not why we should be receiving it, type thing.
And I replied to him, well, that would explain, or the all caps opener.
Yeah.
You still shame the Kojima. Go hard or go home, innit? And he said, you lost, bro. I have no problem with spamming your channel when I have time with reasons why you should never do videos again, lol. You will hear from me very soon, loser. I will hear from you very soon. Oh, gutted. Oh, I'm so gutted. You're going to comment on our videos
And
again.
drive up video engagement.
I've just had 4 comments off you, you muppets. And now you're going to go to all the other comments and reply to which you did at least twice, which I saw.
What did he
all
say?
The other comments. I don't know, just replying, the post. It was something I can't
just
remember.
Bringing it back to the Kojima thing.
It was like, oh, these guys don't even know. It was, you know, that comment that was sarcastic on the top of the video that nobody got. That was sarcastic. They thought it was calling us out.
7 pages one.
Yeah, there was. A comment.
I've got that. It's saved as my comment to read out later. Well, we'll go on to that.
Yeah, go on to that one because he replied to that one.
Okay, so this is from OK. I haven't made it a minute in, but your opinions are bad, and I have written a 7-page essay reason why you're wrong. Quite obviously. Exaggerated because it's funny.
He's obviously not written a 7-page essay why we're wrong because it's an exaggeration for humour. That's what you do to make something funny. You exaggerate, right? And people didn't get it. People didn't get that this was humorous. So what he was doing, he was mocking the Kojima fanboys here by saying something that is obviously not true, but representing them in the sense that I'm going to do something absurdly outrageous.
Yeah, over the top.
Right, that much about it because Kojima fanboys might do that, but a lot of people, and this guy who was the triggered fanboy comment of the week, I can't remember his name, he was like, yeah, right, they just don't get it or something. It was funny.
Uploader doesn't like it when you call him out for being a shitbrick.
That was it. It's like he's agreeing with the opening, but he doesn't even get that it's sarcasm. Yeah. Again, that's 5, Anthony Wooten. That's 5 comments I got off you now. Well done, dude. Awesome.
I mean, those comments, like, think what you like. You're saying shit that's just not what we said, and yeah, that's just the end of it. I'm not taking my time to try and defend myself against idiots, because I did that too recently when I did the Ultima Alliance one. I haven't got the patience to do it. I'll do it again at another point when someone else tries to get upset. Have you got any other? Yeah,
Cheapy V. What does Blaustein do today? Question mark. Which is actually a good, clever quote. Blaustein was the guy who translated.
Yeah.
Like, what does Blaustein do today? That was a good one. Like, it wasn't attacking us, but it's merely pointing out that the person who we're trying to give credit to isn't maybe employed as much as he used to do today. I mean, I don't know what he does today. He's not a household name like Kojima is.
No,
the gaming community, that's for sure. So that's a good point, Mr. Cheapy. That's the way to do it, dude.
The problem is everyone's saying we put all of the credit with this guy, which isn't what we did.
Mischaracterizing what we said
at all.
They're just reacting to a title of a video. That's all they're doing. Just reacting to the title. And, you know, if you come in here and click on the title and then getting so upset that you're making a comment, then we've won, right?
That's the thing.
That's the game of YouTube. We win. Woohoo!
Like when you see a clickbait title, if you think it's clickbait and you're aware of it, don't let yourself be clicked.
Rated,
sorry.
If clickbait didn't work, they wouldn't be on YouTube. If you click a clickbait title on YouTube, then you're making the you're enhancing the situation. You're making the situation continue, right? So don't do it. If you hate clickbait that much, don't click the clickbait. That means that the whole of YouTube will not have clickbait because it won't work anymore. So we won't have to clickbait. But we do have to clickbait because everyone else clickbaits. Everyone clickbaits, whether you like it or not, whether you know it or not. Everyone clickbaits, and they win at YouTube as a result. It's not our rules. We just play by them. Anyway.
Have you got another comment?
AKH Born.
You still on the Metal Gear comments?
Metal Gear Solid too complicated for these two retards. Didn't we say we liked that game?
Literally.
Didn't we say that game?
That's what we said.
Daniel Clark Hughes jumps in. You're going to get a good hard ratioing for this.
Yeah, that was true. That wasn't so bad.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. I mean,
where is it? 69%. 69.
Yeah, but if you 69% dislike ratio. But if you look at the amount of votes, it's not. Yeah. It's not out of sync with the rest of the content. It's just the amount of people who end up disliking is that much higher, which is just overall higher engagement.
You know what? It's fine. If you didn't like it and you disagreed with what we said, that's
just
cool.
Move on with your lives,
but
guys.
Don't start saying things that we didn't say.
Move on with your lives. Again, they're straw manning, aren't they?
Yeah.
Is what they're doing.
That's exactly it. All right, well, I've got a comment that's not Kojima related here, which I thought was quite funny because it's totally true. And this is on our Call of Duty discussion video, which was about the new one being controversial and some journalists not liking it. And there was a guy whose name escapes me who didn't like it when it was announced because he described a scene that he saw behind closed doors where the player got to shoot a woman who went for a gun and he was upset.
Takahashi.
Yeah, and this guy sums it up really nicely. Daniel. Killing men in games, that's fine. Killing women in games, OMG, unacceptable. You should not be able to do that. So much for equality. Exactly. And I don't want to speak for women, obviously, I'm not one. But if you're being even positively discriminated against, that's still discrimination.
Yeah.
Because if you're killing the man and because he's dangerous, but then if there's a woman and she's also dangerous and you're not killing her because of a woman, that's still a form of sexism.
Yeah, the kind of message that they're sending here is though that all this does is encourage abuse against women. It doesn't. It's like, come on. It doesn't matter whether it's a woman or a man there jumping for a gun. Whoever it is, if it's a dog, I'll shoot the fucking dog if he's jumping for a gun.
And it's not like
it's not being sexist.
Yeah.
It's not being gender.
If he's trying to kill me, I'm going to kill him.
It's a human being thing, and I don't care what gender it is. If it's going to pick up a gun and shoot me in a video game, I'm going to shoot it in a video game.
Exactly.
Right?
And
simple.
Women aren't fragile little delicate flowers that need to get protected. It's not, oh, she's a woman, we've got to keep her out of the water. Fuck that. If she's like tough enough to try and kill me,
to try and think she can kill me,
let her try, and I'll stop her. If she's a man or a woman or a dog we're gamers. We've beaten dragons and shit. A woman, like, who cares? No one cares. We're going to kill you just like we're going to kill everyone else because it's the same. Yeah, gender non-specific enemies, and we're going to fuck you all up because we are the heroes in our stories.
So take it. Yeah, next is a comment again on the Kojima. I'm not over the Kojima video, but this isn't about that. This is from SysFF says, Cooper sounds like a bully.
A bully? What did I say that was bullying anyone?
Such a bully, man. You're such a bully. Bullying those people.
Shut the fuck up. I'm not a bully. Give me your lunch money. Well, I'll add that to the list of
Cooper's a bully.
Varying.
You bully. What
could I have possibly said?
It's not just the Ooblets devs that put up with this type of shit.
Yeah.
We get We get abused and harassed. I get abused and harassed by this bully.
If you keep telling people, I'm going to break a glass over your head. Okay. No, I swear I'm not a bully.
Enough said.
I promise. So this one, it was on I think it was the podcast last week. Let me just check. Yes, it was. This comment here, which really confused me because I don't know what I said that prompted it. And it's not like a negative thing, it's just a bit of a joke. From Matty Rose. I don't know, Henry. I once had a battered sausage thrown at me whilst wearing a retro-style Atari shirt. It was in real, though, so I'm not sure if that counts. I've no idea what Mr. Rose is referring to, something that I said. I don't know what you don't know about that I said, but having a battered sausage thrown at you while wearing a retro-style Atari shirt in real, that's...
I can see that happening. How I missed this comment is funny, but
yeah, like,
do I know you, Matty Rose?
I don't know where this comes from, but hey, it is funny, and it's quite a vivid picture he's painted as well. It's not just a sausage thrown at me in real, a battered sausage while wearing a retro-style Atari shirt.
Very specific.
In real. I like it. Funny.
It's
Made
good.
me chuckle.
I mean, it's probably true because it's real after all.
Yeah.
Anyway, next comment from Anon Urmus. It was on our podcast, I think, last week. I don't know if I can trust people with Apple laptops, especially when they're supposed to be gamers giving gaming news.
Not again.
Because the computers that you're using are not good enough for me and my gaming community. So that means that you're shit. You're not actually real gamers if you're using these computers
to read information and scripts off and to record.
I think
audio.
we've been shamed. I think we should hang our heads in shame.
Shall we lug the huge gaming PCs from in there and so dump the monitor on here with a keyboard and everything, so it's going to completely obscure half the frame,
and then never use our editing software which we have on the Macs ever again.
And have to download
the cheap editing software, by the way.
Yeah, download and pay for new software on the big computers. We should sit and hum and make loads of noise.
We should never use our work laptops that we do work on because we're gamers and we have to use PCs for everything, regardless of whether it's gaming or not, right? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Anonymous? No wonder you're anonymous, because you're talking shit.
What we should do is try and use like the internet function on like a console, like PlayStation or an Xbox or something, go through Internet Explorer and Google, get to our Google Docs files and try and type it up and write it on there using a controller, because that's what gamers do.
That's what gamers do, guys.
That's what heroes do.
We don't game on Mac laptops unless we really, really, really have to, and we don't actually. I think I played Stellaris on it once and it got a bit
I don't think
jiggy
I ever.
when I was on a train. Literally because I had nothing else to do and because the computer said it would run it. I played FTL a little bit on it.
And if it runs, it runs. Like, who gives a shit? If it's a low enough, like, less demanding game, why the fuck not?
We don't game on these fucking things. Come on, grow up, man.
Comment on our Take-Two Profits video, which was also about the politicians hating gamers stuff, and this person, Rick Hippie Killer, who I think we may have heard from before, because I recognise the name, poses a very interesting and definitely accurate statistic. 100% of mass murderers drink water. Just saying. Boom. There's your scoop. Drinking water causes mass murder.
100% of mass murderers also have mothers. I blame the mothers.
100% of mass murderers are murderers. All mass murderers are murderers.
That's true.
Can you Adam and Eve it?
100% of mass murderers breathe air. I blame the air.
Get it out of me. I don't want
before
to
it causes me to become a mass murderer. Yeah, there's plenty of things that you can throw out.
I saw one statistic, one tweet by who's the scientist chap, moustache. He's quite funny. Neil deGrasse Tyson. He posted a stupid tweet. I read it. I was like, I think you're trying to do a good thing, but it's not come out. It was essentially like every 48 hours in America, 500 people die in car accidents, 200 people die through like medical negligence, and a few other stats, and then the amount of people killed every 48 hours by guns in US, it was way lower. And he was trying to say like, don't react so emotionally to stuff, just look at the raw data. I'm like, but that's not the same thing. There's significantly more active car users than there are active gun users. I'm not going to say that there's more more cars in America than there are guns, even though I absolutely believe that is the case because it's logical to me. I've got the numbers in front of me though. But people use their cars every single day. Even if you own a car and a gun, you're going to use the car more often than you use the gun.
Yeah,
that's such a stupid, and coming from such a scientist, well-respected man as well.
I didn't read the tweet.
Like him.
I didn't read the tweet, so I don't know in what context it was used. But it sounds like he's trying to diminish the impact of it. He's basically trying using to say, comparison, right?
Stop being as emotional about this and try and think about it logically. Yes, it's a good argument, but your logic isn't accurate here, and you're a scientist. I don't want to say tell a scientist that they're wrong, but I'm going to say you're wrong, Mr. deGrasse Tyson.
The last comment that I've got comes from KB, and I think it was on the guns legislation or guns in causing violence in games or whatever. I truly, honestly wish we didn't waste lives to keep you guys from speaking German. It was a terrible decision. Feels bad, man.
Oh, wait, he wishes the American armed army didn't send over American troops to help in the
waste
First
lives.
and Second World War.
Is that not the most ignorant thing that you ever...
That's insane.
It's like the reason that they, quote, wasted lives to beat the Nazis was to save us from speaking German. Nothing to do with the fact that Japan had just invaded Pearl Harbor. And, you know, it was a good chance that you'd all be speaking German after we'd fell. We were the front line, man. We were the vanguard, is what we were.
Yeah, the ones who said no. I mean, this is our British patriotism coming through, but yeah.
But yeah,
what are you on about?
Another ignorant comment. I just thought it was funny. I wasn't going to try to call them out. I was just going to say it's funny.
We didn't waste our sailors traveling the 3-month journey across the Atlantic to settle in the Americas for you to make stupid comments about dumb shit.
Oh.
But also we didn't send our white people to destroy much of the indigenous population.
Right, you've triggered Henry now. Henry's fighting back. You're a bully.
Gamers rise up. I love those memes so much.
Right, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm out of
expended.
I could go digging for more, but I
let's
can't.
Leave it there. Thank you for listening to us ramble on the bullshit that we ramble about this week, and thanks for watching and supporting us on patreon.com/prettygoodgaming. Every single dollar helps. And that is it from Henry and I. Thanks for watching. We will see you again next time. Until then, bye for now.